I'm sure.
I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Old Saybrook Board of Education to order, and I'd like to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Tonight is an important meeting for the board because we have our officer elections this evening. And I just want to read from the bylaws of the Board of Education. Election of officers shall take place not later than 1 month after the date on which newly elected members take office. Elect from its own members a chairperson, a vice chairperson, and a secretary. The votes of each member cast in such election shall be reduced to writing and made available for public inspection within 48 hours, excluding Saturday, Sunday, or legal holidays. Shall be recorded in the minutes. If such officers are not chosen after 1 month from the date to which newly elected members take off because of a tie vote of the members, the town council, or if there's no town council, the selectmen of the town shall choose the officers. Officers shall hold their respective offices for 2 years, and that's part of the bylaws, and I did summarize that. I didn't read the whole thing. So at this time, I would like to ask anyone who is interested in being chairperson of the Old Saybrook Board of Education, if you would just identify yourself.
Trevor Nichols, and be on for another year, 2 years. I've been chair, enjoyed my first year, and I want to do it.
With that, I will put the ballots out in front of board members. Giving you too many on that side. Cheated this side. You have one extra over there, Jamie, too.
Yeah, I'll walk over and grab it.
And you just want to. Thank you.
I'm good on my side.
The vote is 8 for Trevor Nichols, 1 abstention. You are the chair. Congratulations.
Moving on, we also have an opening for vice chair and open floor for anybody who's interested in vice chair.
Kelly Kennedy, I'm interested in the role of vice chair for this one.
Everything from?
Yes.
Hey, the vote is unanimous. Kelly, congratulations. Vice Chair. Finally, position of secretary. I think you know, different things there.
Kara, I'm interested in beginning the role of secretary.
Okay, it was 8 votes for Kara and 1 vote for Karina. Congratulations. Yes. Moving on, we are now looking at the subcommittee liaison appointments. Here, and there actually are several changes. If you look in your board packet, everything's highlighted for those changes. Look at. We'll start budget and fiscal planning. Start with that. George is no longer here. I mean, it was appointed as chair this summer. Maybe you wish to stay as chair.
I do.
Yeah, Elaine, Jim, still interested in staying on? Sure.
Yes.
And we need 1 more person.
It's really fun.
Budget and fit.
Going once, going twice.
Oh, that much.
I'm sorry.
Kelly.
Kelly.
Yeah.
Next, we'll put personnel. Karen, you're with the chair. Yeah.
I do, yeah.
Okay. And there's an opening on personnel through the George Chang leading the board.
Yeah, 2 openings.
Yeah, there's,
Yeah.
Karen's there.
Yeah.
twice.
And Jeff.
Okay, so. Chang, you and Jack are interested.
I'm interested, yes. And Jane also.
Good, thank you. Policy, Eileen, you're the chair. Which do you want? We have 1 opening.
Ellen Highway was on.
You could be on multiple chapters. I was not on there.
You're on.
You're
Jim,
already.
Steve Wheeler,
Yeah.
Eileen Baker.
Yeah, we'll get 1 opening.
I'd be one on them. Okay. Well,
Great.
And finally, we have facilities. There is a vacancy in the chair position. Right now on the committee, we've got Karen, Kelly, and myself.
Should there be 2 openings because you're a right as me as chair, sort of a favor.
Very good question.
bylaw right in front of it.
Because he's on every committee.
He's on every committee.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's the chairman as well.
I would, like to chair.
Okay.
I join it. There's no. Facilities? Here, I love buildings.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so we got facility, have Kelly as chair, we have Aaron, Steve. Actually, we're right on our side.
Yeah. So that was.
Yeah, we need one more actually, I apologize.
Oh,
Okay. We have Kelly as chair, we have Aaron, Steve, Shane. Great, thank you. Ad hoc committees, strategic planning. Currently, we've got, Baker and Karen Carter as chair, and vacancy.
I'll volunteer for that.
Carry on.
we don't.
Okay, so, that over.
It's not disbanded, but it's
Which
in
one?
hiatus,
I
a long
couldn't-
hiatus.
Field Life Committee.
Of the light,
Yeah.
yeah.
Lights. The last committee we're looking at are demographics and enrollments, is actually committee of chair. There's two openings, George and Alan.
So an active meeting. Yeah, we have a meeting scheduled for what, 7? Yeah.
I thought Jack's hand go up. It did. Thanks, Steve. He's making sure all voices are heard.
Anybody else?
Yeah, if you need to just now.
Jeff?
Jim, you got Jim.
So we have Sabrina, Jack, and Jim on demographics and enrollments. Now looking at the other assignments on the contract negotiations. Superintendents have Steve Bueller, myself, and Jim Henderson. Change there.
Which one is that?
Superintendent administrators. Custodians, we've got Karen and Jim Henderson. Nurses have a vacancy there. The Nurses.
Again, it's the question about it, as the Trevor's chair, there's two committees. Okay.
That's just the operational question. We have. There's no continuity between all of the different negotiations. Why is it so broken up like that?
What would it be?
So you mean, why doesn't one or two board members? serve
Why isn't there
on
a certain group that is involved in all contract
negotiations?
negotiations?
It never was, I don't know the answer to that, Steve, it's never been that way, and I think it's probably because it's so incredibly time consuming. You know, teachers alone, probably the most complex one, those can last till 2 or 3 in the morning, multiple nights. So many of them are done during the day, like typically nurses and custodians are done during the day, so that requires someone who can be free and available during the day. I think it was more logistics than anything.
With that said, are there any, I guess there is the question too, if there are any commonalities to be considering across contracts, like in terms of grouping their groups or?
I understand each contract is different, but it's saying, this might not be the night to have a conversation on contracts, but I brought up in the past how there isn't, there isn't any continuity in the position, from the board standpoint, I'm curious about that. My record keeping, to hear the change, join the nurses.
Yes. Yep. Okay, we can move on, secretaries, we've known a secretary now. George and Alan are up.
The good news is another year, right? Another year before we went to start negotiating in a year.
Teachers, actually George Chang was off, Alan's off, so there's 2 openings at teachers. And I just yeah,
It could be a natural.
anybody else? Kelly. Jim, Jeff, Kelly. Non-bargaining unit employees, Steve Wheeler, myself, George.
I can say that if you only have two of you on that one, like if you can't find a third, I don't think that's gonna be a huge problem. That's that's a handful of people. But I mean, someone wants it, great.
Good to go. On the special committees, we've got the district calendar committee. Ellen came off, so it's just Karina and myself on that. Okay. And last item is the out of district entities, Cave, Diary. Okay, Learn, Steve.
I'd like to step away from that if somebody's willing to take that on. Their meetings have
And I'm sorry,
coincided with my work schedule now, and
Thursday morning meetings now.
yeah, I just, their 1 month schedule is now working with my 1 month schedule in the firehouse, so they were overlapping.
Yeah.
Okay, so this, again, it's like one Thursday a month, usually like the third Thursday of the month.
Is
And you
there a
can do,
Zoom option?
there is a Zoom option.
What time?
It's usually in the morning, the Zoom meeting.
How long do they last?
I don't know, to be honest with you, they have lined up this year since we went.
Like
back
an
to
hour and a
school.
half, 2 hour meetings, you know, maybe some breakfast before and. We'll talk to you all day, on day, so it's gonna give you a lot more energy.
There is a Zoom option.
Okay. We can keep it open for now. He's going on, it's open. And me ask the final item.
If there's a space.
Yep, Alan's off, so.
Okay, I'd like to join.
Everything.
Great, thank you, everyone. Look at that updated on the website.
Yeah, I don't
I think he's right. I think we
Finally
should
found
follow
it.
up on it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I can come off any of those.
Yeah.
If that's good for me, so.
yeah, it does talk about having a committee chairperson, it does talk about the chair being able to go on
Right,
every one of them, but it doesn't say whether or not he's prohibited from being an official member. So I think we have to check with the attorney on that. It's not in there, we can do that, yeah.
If we determine that, I'll just keep us up on all those. Okay, on to community relations, communications, correspondence. Karen?
Oh, yes. A couple things. First of all, we do have the from the high school, we've got the Rambler, which I will pass around to everybody in a moment. And then also, I believe Jane brought this from the tax, from you, Jane?
It's from Dr. Bachman,
Oh, I'm
but it was
sorry.
at Jane's request, so I said, let's share it with everybody,
Okay,
in
that's-
case there's more interest.
From the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education and Public School Superintendents, from a conference that was 2 weeks ago, school governance position statement. In 2016, that seems kind of dated, but I'm just not sure what that's all about, but anyway, that's coming around along with the Rambler.
Karen? Moving on, we're gonna look at our reports from our student board reps.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
So this is a very short report, especially compared to our one last
That was a
time. But
novel.
keep in mind, we did only have 6 school days before this report was due. So wasn't really much to talk about. But so for clubs, we had NHS inductions on Monday. So all of our new members are inducted. And then the health club was going to have an ice cream social, but this was canceled due to some school regulations, and students are kind of frustrated because it was approved and then canceled, and they all gave their money for it. It was a chaotic situation, but it's okay. And then obviously you all are getting the Rambler. The December edition is currently being worked on. And then we also had a Yukon field trip take place last week, and students really enjoyed the trip. They thought it was very beneficial for them. And then on Friday, there is a leadership conference. I don't know much about that, so don't ask me questions. But
12 junior athletes going to Southern Connecticut for an all-day leadership conference.
Thank you, Mr. Saunders. Couldn't have done that.
All right, and then Chorus has their fall concert on Wednesday, the 29th, so tomorrow. And then Band Day, which is of course when the 8th grade band comes up and performs with the junior and senior band, is on Wednesday, the 6th, December 6th. And then auditions for the musical, which is of course the Little Mermaid, are going to be held all of next week, which is the week of December 4th. And then for sports, the boys soccer team won their 5th state championship in a row, which is very exciting.
Yeah.
And then senior Kevin DiCaprio was awarded the Game Time CT Athlete of the Week. And then the winter sports seasons are beginning, and I can't believe I forgot to include this, but the MSW football team is moving on to the playoffs, and I believe they're playing their first game tonight, which is very exciting.
Yeah, when did that game
Yep.
start now or
6:30.
6:30? Do we have any?
I have texted Mr. Block and he hasn't got back.
Okay, that's great.
So, yeah, that's it. That's it.
That's good. Well,
The tiny one.
Thank you. Board members, do you have any questions for our board reps?
Just a quick question, is the concert tomorrow night at the high school?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, audience of citizen. Is nobody online? No, nobody online. Okay. So move on. Set agenda, community minutes and special meeting minutes. I'm looking for a motion to approve the set agenda. Seconds. Second, any discussion? If there's no discussion, on the vote, all those in favor, set agenda.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Abstentions? So moved, thank you. Our next item on the agenda is education issues for discussion, athletics, students participating in out-of-town programs. Jan, Joe, and Brendan.
Thank you. So, Mr. Saunders has prepared a presentation at the board's request after, a citizen came to us in end of October, I believe, asking for information about how decisions are made about allowing students to be involved in, programs in other schools, how cooperatives are formed, and specifically about, the finances for those students. So Mr. Saunders had a short presentation, but it answers a lot of the questions. The questions that are not answered in his presentation, there were some questions asked about Title IX and information on who the Title IX officer is, Title IX policies. I answered all of those on October 31st in an email and linked all of our public facing documents that answer all those questions in that email. So Brendan's just going to talk about the sports pieces of it.
All right, thank you. Trent, if you want.
Sure.
So the goal of this was to determine if Old Saybrook Public Schools should grant funding to students who would like to play on athletic teams not currently offered by Old Saybrook. So when we say teams not offered by Old Saybrook, we mean teams that are either housed at Old Saybrook, hosted by Old Saybrook, or Old Saybrook engages in a co-op with. These teams are known as cooperatives. They used to be known as teams of one and typically are made up of a number of neighboring schools. So how this connects to the strategic plan, this can be considered an equity situation where all students will be challenged, respected, and represented throughout the district so that it will prepare to achieve the highest aspirations in a global society. We have some students that want to participate in sports that aren't currently offered at Old Saybrook and make as many opportunities to come up with ways to get them on the teams. And connected to our building goals, obviously athletics and education go hand in hand. By May 2024, there will be a 10% increase in student learning needs being met. Obviously with this situation, this is an athletic need. We are looking to possibly meet for a month, which OSHS students and staff on our OSHS school climate survey. Typically, when we have a situation like this, we look at what do neighboring schools do, what do schools in our conference do. This is the list of all 12 schools participate in the Shoreline Conference. As you can see, two of them, currently pay for teams of this nature. Those are Westbrook and Old Line. All the rest do not. For the job going forward, creating a budget with unknown costs. We can't determine how many kids are going to be on a team that we host, let alone teams that we don't host. So it's very difficult to judge based on numbers, how many people will be coming in, which makes putting a budget line item in for that team very difficult, not knowing. How to determine which teams we will support and which teams we won't. Transportation is an issue, very expensive. And communication with the hosts would be difficult.
Brendan, specifically, can you say what communication we're required to have? You know, about like student performance, academics, attendance.
So we're responsible for all of them. Everything, eligibility, we have to report to the host school on attendance, on eligibility, doctors, and medical issues, anything like that. They report to us if there's a behavioral issue, if someone isn't attending practice, you know, very similar to our check-ins. The AD of that school, their coach would reach out to the AD, would reach out to me. So next steps, we have planned to reimburse families in the event that there is money in the remaining in our 810 athletics account at the end of the fiscal year. This account is used for dues and fees associated with athletics. We have proposed in next year's budget a $5,000 line item that would equally reimburse any family who paid out-of-pocket expenses for athletics not offered at Old Public Schools up to a $5,000 limit. Depending on approval and the number of athletes associated with the cooperatives, this may be enough to cover all athletes involved, but we won't know until the end of each school year.
So just want to make sure we're clear to the board, those were proposals that we made to this particular at a meeting that Mr. Saunders and I had with them. We proposed that we could look at the end of the year funds in that particular budget, and we proposed that it could be put into the operating budget, which has not yet been formed for this year. That would be decided through the regular process.
Thank you for the presentation. Steve, you have a question?
Two questions. First question, Superintendent Crucio, that email of 1031, I didn't get a copy of it.
You know what? You're right. I noticed today that I didn't send copies to the board, and I typically try to remember to do that when you kick something over to me to hand out. So I will get you a copy of that, all of you a copy of that tomorrow. And if you'd like to look at it now, I can hand you my paper copy.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
And then question, so our football program, what is that?
We have a co-op agreement. We have a
So
co-op.
what is the difference between a co-op agreement and a cooperative?
I will explain that to you. Again, that's very tricky. This used to be called a team of one. And the CIAC decided to change it from a team of one to a cooperative, which sounds a lot like a co-op, which probably wasn't the best choice of language. What a team of one was, which now a cooperative is, it's a bunch of schools who don't necessarily have a financial agreement who come together to have a team because they could not do it alone. We used to be involved in an East Haven co-op for boys hockey. We have since not had any boys hockey players. That is why, one of the reasons why we don't go into these arrangements, because we don't know if we're going to have players this year. We've had a football program for 40 years. We've been involved in a co-op with Westbrook. So we're pretty sure we're gonna have a substantial amount of football players every year. That's why we engage in a co-op. Like I said, with East Haven and hockey, we haven't had a hockey player in 2 years. So it's difficult to get into a binding agreement with another town when you don't know if you're going to be able to supply players. Also, sometimes there are limited numbers of towns allowed into a group. When we didn't supply a player for East Haven hockey for 2 years, they removed us and they added another 10. So like our standing co-op for softball is with Westbrook. We've again had a program for as long as I know, and we assume that we will have enough players to sustain it when we combine.
I'm sorry, Helen?
No, I just have a question, just for information. Now, many years ago, I remember there were students that were interested in being on a swim team. Can you help clarify that? Again, I'm not really focused in sports, but
We have had more interest with our female swimmers than with our male swimmers. We currently have one male swimmer. I don't think we've had more than two at any one time since I've been athletic director. We have, again, an arrangement with Hand where we supply our swimmer, or they supply a team for our swimmers to swim. We are not involved in a co-op with them.
And how do students even learn, excuse me, how do students even learn about the sports that they could participate in? Or,
So typically, there's the major sports that we see this in: gymnastics, cheerleading, boys, girls swim, and hockey. Hockey, one, because it's the most expensive, it's the most difficult to run. You look around, we're the closest ice hockey rink around here, we have to go to Northford for hockey, so it's very difficult. Same thing with the pool. The only pool in our district, in our conference is HK. Our swimmers have to go to East Lyme or HK in order to swim more in the boys' case can. So these sports are very difficult to put together. Typically, they're always the smallest number of teams. If you ask, and I'm sure if you ask our hockey parents, most kids that play hockey started playing hockey when they were very little. There's very few town teams that are offered. It's not like a little league for hockey. There's not a little league for swimming. So these sports don't have great numbers. I don't know if that answers your question. But yes, it is known what sports we have. And typically the kids are pretty well known because they come to me. They have great relationships with the coaches. Typically the coaches reach out to them very early, either in the summer before or as they're coming in as freshmen. So they're pretty well connected.
and sometimes do the parents have to provide transportation? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Because some sports, perhaps maybe they are on a bus and others parents are, they provide transportation for their students to get to those sports. Any particular sport that's come to your attention that maybe has never come to All Sabres before? There's one, but I can't think of the name. It's sort of a Long Island sport and everybody plays it mostly, I don't know.
Anywhere.
Yeah,
I mean,
but any-
volleyball is the only one that is a big one, but that wouldn't be a team of one sport.
Okay,
That would typically, we would have to have the numbers, we'd have to go through a process, we would have a club team, a JV team, and then a varsity team.
I see.
But in all honesty, too, our enrollment going down, it's very difficult to add a sport without removing a sport. And obviously, nobody wants to remove a sport. Because we don't have enough numbers to fill rosters. Like, as every time we add one sport, you're probably taking 3 or 4 athletes away from another team. So it's difficult.
Thank you, Brendan, very much.
Kelly, you can see.
So understanding that's the case and with the dynamic enrollment situation that we have, do we do anything to try to understand what the interest is, like proactively? Like, so maybe it's scanning or surveying incoming 8th grade students and then with our high school students to understand what the distribution is. I'm just thinking of like field hockey, we've been trying to like regenerate that. There's been a lot of like communication about interest and how many people, and we do clinics and a number of things like. How
So
do
the
we
reason,
gauge that?
or the reason we did that for field hockey is because obviously we watched our program at the middle school.
Right.
And then our numbers have been slowly going down at the high school. And when we see something like that, then we try and boost numbers. We're gonna do the same thing. We've already started doing the same things, growth across. We have a big graduate class with growth across this year. So we're probably gonna struggle with numbers. I don't know if we'll have enough to field a JV team at this point. But we're doing a program where it's bring a friend. So if every girl on the team brings a friend, we just doubled our numbers. So it's small school. We do as much as we can to try and get as many kids involved. Obviously, 100% participation is our goal.
And I'm just wondering if there's like kind of some of these like odd sports that we know that we can't necessarily offer a program to, like hockey, for example. If we gauge what the interest is, maybe proactively to understand what the numbers are, so that we would determine if there's an interest maybe in going like one direction or not, or what opportunities we might be able to offer to parents.
Well, that's why we do these teams of one now called cooperatives. It's just to provide an opportunity for these kids to participate. We would never have enough to have a boys swim team, at least historically we haven't, and I don't see those numbers changing at this point. If we had an influx of 10 swimmers, we would revisit it, we look at it. But at this point, we have one hockey athlete, one male swimmer, and 3 females.
But you are, you communicate with the feeder programs as well, right? You find out who's coming up through the ranks, right?
Through the middle school.
Yeah, but you
Yes.
don't also talk to the Park and Rec folks and
Our,
get a sense of who's playing travel soccer and that kind of thing.
to a certain point,
Yeah.
we see some people that play travel teams that continue to play travel teams. In high
Instead of
school and don't participate on our teams. So I really rely more on the middle school numbers, looking at what's coming up than town teams. And plus, there are kids participating on sports that aren't necessarily housed in Sabre. You know, and again, you see more co-ops who have tried to put, or, you know, been attempted the Coastal Chargers for football, with an attempt to make a feeder program for a football program. You know, it involved many towns and we can make the numbers.
You had brought up about the male playing at East Haven a few years past, and Mr. Doris had made the allegation that we had paid in the past. Were you able to do any research on that and see if the Board of Ed had paid any funds
In
towards?
my 4 years as athletic director, no funds were ever sent from Wall Saybrook to East Haven.
I
Are
can
you aware of
add,
any?
I can add a little bit to that. That was a cooperative formed by the Board of Education based on the fact that at the time, we were told that we had a number of students by the athletic director who were gonna be playing hockey, and it was gonna be over more than one student's 4-year period at the time. This is, I'm going on memory, so, but I believe that should be recorded somewhere in minutes. And so we formed a cooperative, and that explained the relationship between the two schools, that they would hire, I believe the terms where they would hire the coach, we would pay a certain amount per student. Whether that covered costs or not, I don't know. It included, you know, helping the school district pay for officials, coaches, insurance, all of those things. You know, the problem with those cooperatives is that if you can't sustain them over time, that school comes to rely on you and that revenue stream and that relationship. And you have to end it because you don't have the athletes to put in it, or you have to continue to pay whether you have the athletes to put in it or not. And so those become very tricky if you know you don't have a big enough group of students to move forward through it over multiple years. Because you don't want it to be, it's a freshman and they might play until they're seniors and they might not.
So just so I understand correctly, we are willing to pay as long as we have a group of people that we're paying for.
Yeah.
We're not willing to pay
Proposal to potentially pay, that's that.
up until today. We're willing to pay if there's a group of.
No. We haven't had a cooperative, a new cooperative since that hockey cooperative, which.
You just won one for football.
It's a
No, we've
co-op,
always
not a
had
club.
football, so unfortunately, we haven't had that, the.
We are
individual
paying for
team.
football.
That is a co-op, not a cooperative. They're two different.
It's on,
They are the same to me. These are students playing it somewhere else. What I'm saying is, we'll enter into an agreement to pay if there's multiple students on the same sport to play. Or we will not if it's one.
and I think.
I'm
you can
just
see-
trying to get that
I think you can
clarification.
see a lot of the other school districts for the same logistic reasons that they say five or more, you know, so they come up, because again, it's about sustainability, it's not sustainable. So yes, that's correct, it's mostly correct.
I was gonna say that I appreciate the proposal to, for next year's budget. I think of the $5,000 line item, I think that just is, just taking a direction that's just taking a look at possibilities. And I appreciate that.
So my question is, so if we're looking at it for this year, we have 4 people swimming,
Yeah.
girls and boys.
Our girls are, again, in a co-op.
Oh, they're in a co-op, sorry.
So we
Okay,
really
so
only
we
have
really
2 athletes,
2 athletes in the
one
co-op.
swimmer, one, non.
Okay,
Has that been dwindling,
What's that?
that the number of students that we have involved in that?
It's very difficult to be involved in one of these teams. I mean, you're talking about travel, you're talking about playing, you know, with typically non-classmates for the most part. It's a huge commitment, especially hockey. Hockey is one of the most difficult ones. Ice time can vary. You can be practicing at 9 o'clock at night. So it's more difficult. Same thing with pools and rinks are very similar. You know, they're usually shared amongst many towns and you don't always get the best time.
So it is the students are putting in a lot of their time. It's an important activity for those students who are participating in these sports, or it is very important. So, I'm just trying to get, an understanding of the proposal for $5,000. So that would be divided among the four people this year. Oh, sorry, two, sorry, I've written down four.
The
Okay, so it's
proposals for next year.
not for this year. Oh, it's not.
Has to do with the operating budget.
Right. Okay.
The thing that we did discuss was if there is money left over in a particular line item in the athletic budget this year, we could do that. But again, that operating budget decision would be made through the budget process.
Okay, so it's looking at $5,000, and it could be for around, probably, we're probably talking about less than 5 students, if you look at an average, right?
In an average year.
Okay, and is crew part of this ever, or no, that's, okay, that's not a sport that's affected
Not a
by this,
cooperative.
okay. Okay. That answers me.
So over the last 4 years, how many people have you had in a cooperative per year? On average?
Last year, we had 2. The year before that, we had 1. I think the number of swimmers. Me and when was your last summer?
Me graduating in 21.
21, so, and there were 2 on that, team, I believe.
For, I believe he was the only one
Was
who
he the only
year he
one?
graduated.
What are the costs associated with swimming?
Swimming is very minimal. It's hockey that's extremely expensive.
It's the nature of the sport.
Do we have to make a decision about this tonight?
No. Presentation, questions from the board, which we're doing right now. Great, thank you, Brendan, for the presentation. Moving on, report to administration. Kathy, please, for the school.
Ooh, Heston.
He was on.
There he is, he's up there.
Board members, do you have any questions for, the business school report? Any?
Heston, good evening.
Good evening.
I'm very interested in the Goodwin Buddies program and the homework club. So,
Sure.
My question is that, do the students actually at Goodwin School have homework? Are you talking about 4th graders?
So as we come around December and January, students in grades 2 and above start getting some level of homework. And the Goodwin Buddies program is aligned with high school mentors who come 2 days a week and help them with their studies. If they don't have homework, they read together. They are involved in activities together. Before every session, they go outside for some fresh air and a walk together. And we really try to foster a strong bond between the high school students and the students who are in Goodwin Buddies.
I think it's a fantastic program. My question is, how are the volunteers chosen from the high school? How do they become interested in being a volunteer for?
So Jen Broder, who runs the Goodwin Buddies program, works with the guidance department at the high school and makes a general announcement to all students. We've had freshmen all the way through senior volunteer. They go through an orientation with Mrs. Broder and myself, and then they are certified, quote unquote, to begin working with students.
I think it's a fantastic program. I was actually thinking about maybe when we talk about those students with limited English proficiency, maybe there's a volunteer, a student that perhaps is multilingual, and they could be able to be paired up with the student at Goodwin that would love to be able to have a Goodwin buddy just to have a conversation with. Just a thought.
Yep, that's already in the works. That happens.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Other questions for Haskell? Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry, Old Church Middle School, any questions for Dr. Bachman on the report?
Yeah, I'm curious about the Wesleyan program. There's a visitation.
Oh, yeah, so that was part of our leadership program, so the students that have applied to be in the leadership program, which was I believe about a third of our 8th grade class that applied. All of them are part of the program. They went to Wesleyan and they did a variety of things there. A lot of it focused on the athletic piece, but not necessarily playing sports, but how to be a leader in those settings, and how to interact. They met with the coach, who I think is somebody that most people know, but I don't. Okay. I think I wrote it in the report.
It's okay.
I apologize. And I know so little about sports. And they did a tour of the campus, but it was really focused on what skills do you need to be a good leader, and how do you manage all of those different pieces of being a college, sports, the work, the friendships, and having that balance to make sure that you're being effective in all those ways. And I think one of the things that was a really nice aspect of that conversation that day was the fact that the coach really talked about like being kind to people and acknowledging people and making them feel like they belong, and that's really a big piece of being a leader.
So my question just was, there's a small group of 8th graders, but when they come back to the middle school, do they again share their experiences with the other 8th graders?
I don't know if they formally did that, but that's a really good idea. I like that idea.
I
I
just
will
thought,
share that with the leader of the group.
I just thought that it's a great experience.
Yeah.
And so that just creates some sort of continuity, but thanks so much.
Any other questions for the middle school? Thank you very much. Yeah, also high school. Any questions for high school report?
It's a comment. Just a quick one. I think it's fabulous that the people from Johnson and Wales came to the high school and did a live demonstration to get kids really excited about, oh, I might want to go there, versus reading brochures and things that don't really provide enough personalization. So I thought it was terrific.
And one of the goals we have is authentic experiences for our kids and opportunities. But it is funny, even at the high school age, their eyes light up.
Yeah.
I think that excitement is really important.
It seems like a good opportunity for other colleges to learn when they come to the high school, to maybe bring students with them. Get kids excited about it. Yeah, terrific.
Thank you. Curriculum instruction and assessment. Questions on that report? Here,
Quick question, and if it's more appropriate for another night. I just want to ask you, Dr. Fletcher, about the reading program that you mentioned in here. Wondering, what are the differences between what we're already providing versus what the state is mandating? And again, if it's too complex, we can do it another time. If it's a quickie tour, that would be great. Quick overview.
I don't think there is a quick overview with that one.
Okay. Then I don't, that's a great question. But I don't want to, if it's an agenda item, that's fine,
We are supposed to hear whether or not we got the waiver
Okay,
by Friday.
Yeah.
And I think soon after that, we should plan to talk to the board about how, so Dr. Fletcher and I have a meeting with, the ELA folks, and hopefully Heston on Friday to talk about what we learned from the state and then to decide how is our pilot going, or what direction we're going, and then I think we'll be ready to come back and talk to you about it.
yeah, I'm just curious to see if it we're really going off track to what we found to be, I think, a successful program here, so.
Yeah.
Okay, but stay
That
tuned.
is a big question.
All righty then, thank you.
Yeah. So Carrie, I was interested in the professional development on multilingual learners. And maybe just give some background. Who is Marissa?
Sure. So Dr. Marisa Ferraro is a professor from Southern Connecticut State University. She had worked with the State Department of Ed and received a grant to do a training for all teachers. She has been working with the district for the past several years, providing the basic training, and then last year was more of an advanced training for multilingual learners. This year, we're looking to move a little deeper into our practice. Knowing that we do have a rising population of multilingual learners in our building, trying to see how do we best reach those students inside of our tier 1 lessons, our daily lessons. So during the November 6th professional learning time, Dr. Ferraro came in. She worked specifically with our Goodwin teachers as well as our high school teachers. Now in March of last year, March 10th, she worked with our middle school teachers as well. And there has been a continuation of this learning, so we're looking to have her back in the district for our next PL session, I believe on March 8th of 24, to work specifically with our middle school teachers. But it's really just seeing how do we now go to the next level? We've done a lot of learning. How do we apply it to lessons that we know are coming up inside of our classroom and really engage those students inside of those.
Terrific, thanks so much for that clarification.
Operations, facilities and finance, do you have any questions for Julie?
Only thing I want to publicly thank Mike Cameron and Alan Hall. They had, like so many people this summer, an absolutely crazy schedule for trying to get any kind of work done. If you haven't seen what they've done, it is pretty spectacular. Mike Cameron and his son put together that walkway, and Alan and Pete and myself were just sort of, you know, pinch hitters in the background that sort of gave him a concept that we liked. And he did a beautiful job. It's really something to see. Alan Hull assures me he's going to be able to get it paved before winter, which is great to hear. There's the plant is still open and asphalt still available, but they both deserve a huge thank you because they made this possible. It's an extremely generous donation by both entities. So.
Is there a reforming?
I think that's something we can bring back to Alan and Scott and talk about coordinating that with the town as well, because they were so involved.
Yes, and certainly don't leave Alan and Scott. They were, you know, instrumental as well.
That's probably something we could do with the first night game in the spring.
When it's warmer.
Is there any like PR plan just to get the word out to the community, because it was such a large, you know, it's the whole community. It's not just the families of Old Saybrook students, it's the whole community that was involved with this. I think it would be a nice thing to have something in the newspaper that says, hey, this is finished, we're gonna have a big party at the whatever game in the spring or something like that, so that people, and maybe a way like when it would be appropriate for somebody from the community to come to the school to look at it. You know, is that something that you would want to do on Saturdays or Sundays to go stop by if you want to see it? Because I think people do want to find a rep, you know, and take a picture and put it on Facebook and all those kind. I think you'll see people doing that if we kind of spark that idea, which is what we want, you know.
I think they were, you know, what it is that the committee, which is really sort of a town committee, was doing all the PR. So we'll see if they wanna do that or if they.
Yeah, it might be in the works.
Yeah, right. We can check on that.
So that was the exciting part. The not so exciting part of the facilities is that those of you that were at the joint meeting, we do have some heating issues going on. Goodwin is continuing to struggle with the new unit ventilators. The motors are just not holding up, but the company, you know, they're trickling in and we're able to replace them, and everything is up and running presently, but we just hold our breath because they're not sending the same model motor to replace the motors that are burning out. So that's an indicator to me that they realize that there's a flaw in that original design, but they're standing behind it. They don't cost us anything. They're replacing them. So, you know, it's all okay at the moment, but winter is not really upon us yet. So I always worry about that. And then at the middle school, we lost our heating in the cafeteria. We have set up temporary
units that are wired and running and, you know, we'll be fine, but those parts will not be until February. So, it's everything that we try to do. And as you know, kind of like the air conditioning, we won't have those parts until next summer to finish that project. So everything is just, on back order. It takes a long time to complete and, we just hope we don't have a lot of repairs that are difficult to, you know, to kind of keep going, like the heating in the cafeteria where we had to bring in two, you know, large portable heaters that are suspended from the ceiling and wired into our, you know, our panel and so forth. It makes those projects a little bit more cumbersome along the way, but financially, we're in, you know, okay shape at this point. Nothing, you know, has been really outstanding and significant. However, it is early in the year, and as you know, by looking at the financial report, we don't encumber everything. We encumber as we go. So even though you see a bottom line, it still looks like there's a balance. Much of that is spoken for. We just won't do a lot of those projects and things until springtime when we know that it's kind of safe to move forward.
Thank you. Student services, any questions for Sarah?
Sounds like you're doing a lot of really interesting and innovative things.
Yeah, it's been fun. I love it.
Athletics. Extracurricular activities, something I'm trying to for.
A question on the middle school sports philosophy. I know that this is on here for a reason. There's been a lot of chatter around town about this philosophy and kind of the intention of the philosophy. So I appreciate the intent of the philosophy is here. Just wondering how this came about a little bit and just thoughts on sixth grade participation in particular. So this is like the first year that sixth graders can be open to sports, but the reality is that none of them ever get on the team. So
that's not actually 100% accurate. Sixth graders have been allowed to try out for all sports,
Right.
not all sports, the majority of sports, but the majority of sixth graders, you know what I mean? What we're trying to do is we try to focus on the seventh and eighth graders with a better chance that they're going to transition into high school.
sure.
Sixth graders are going to transfer into seventh and eighth grade, and they'll have an opportunity to play as well. We're trying to make an experience for everyone involved. This philosophy was developed before I was in this position, but I do agree with it. It was in conjunction with the CIAC. It's the middle school philosophy that is almost universally adopted, at least in our shoreline towns I work with. We don't see a lot of sixth grade participation. We also see other programs, town programs that are more catered to younger athletes. There's also to a point too where in games in eighth grade it can be a safety factor because we see so much growth between sixth and eighth grade. So there's a lot of reasons for the philosophy. For me, the biggest one is wanting kids to continue the sport. And if you see an eighth grader get cut from a basketball team who's hoping their future as an athlete, you might not see them continue on the high school level.
I understand all those pieces. I guess, how are we setting expectations then during tryouts for that process or that thought process, right? So if we have like real safety concerns about sixth graders playing against eighth graders or that type of thing, like how are we communicating that?
I think it's pretty well known that, I mean, it says it in the handbook that priority is going to be given to older kids. Tryouts are a controlled situation. You know, the coaches do very specific things. Obviously, they're going to match kids up against kids of appropriate age, size, ability. But again, those instructions are given to older kids.
So what are we doing for the sixth graders? What are we doing for the fifth graders? You're just saying you don't get to play anything? Come try out. We got plenty of numbers on 7 and 8. See you next year. Next year you get to play because you're seventh grader.
So there's town leagues, there's travel leagues.
Do we help facilitate that in any way?
Do I? No.
So
I'm in charge of.
I will say, I don't agree with this. I didn't agree with it when I heard about it. I think we need to come up with something better than just saying,
We also offer cross-country, indoor and outdoor track that doesn't make cuts. And any kid who does not make a basketball team is welcome to join the team or a soccer team or any other team as well. We're one of the few schools that offer an indoor track team.
But there's nothing we could do for fifth and sixth, and maybe make a fifth, sixth team.
I know of
sixth
no
grade
other
team.
middle school in Shoreline Conference that has a fifth and sixth grade team, so I don't know who we play against. Gym time is already, we already have, practice is getting out close to 6 o'clock at night. We would have to add another round of practices, which would again push middle school students possibly 8 o'clock at night. We had to do 3 different shifts, 4 on some days when indoor track is also in there. We'd have to get a whole list of coaches involved. So there are other opportunities for athletics, just aren't front of the middle.
There's also intramurals, that are able to participate in a variety of different sports depending on the season.
So do the kids who don't make it in sixth grade, do they then get encouraged to go to the intramural route?
They get encouraged to do something. Every athlete's encouraged to do something. Typically, most of them would go
Through our athletic department, or?
Absolutely. It's not, we would never not encourage participating in an athletic program. It's just not necessarily, unfortunately, the one they necessarily want to be. But again, I know of no other schools that offer fifth and sixth grade teams.
It does seem like our Park and Rec offers a pretty substantial breadth of those for kids who do want to compete in, whether it's basketball, soccer, there's, I believe there's still football, some sort. I know there used to be. So it's flag football. It does seem like there's a lot of options, through the Park and Rec.
Now, I have one more question, Steve, sorry. When will we get the report on the banners and things like that?
So all town or team banners went up this weekend, actually, from myself with custodians. On Wednesday, we, really nice layout. We have all Shoreline banners on one end of the gym, the Shoreline championships on one end of the gym, all the state championships on another end of the gym. We're still working to figure out what we're gonna do with individual items.
So we're on time and ready for basketball.
Yes, the gym looks great.
And the pictures are beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, the gym looks really good.
Good job. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks for looking at it, school.
Yeah, can I ask one more question? Sorry, I heard you earlier. Just, yeah, sure. I guess just within the philosophy, right? I totally understand, what is being said about the size and the preference for the eighth graders. I know that sometimes that goes in the other way too, where they know that they're not getting cut, so they go on to the team and they know they're taking spots away for potentially from like the seventh graders, because in that sense, like it's really only the seventh graders that are trying out. So if the intent of having a tryout, if we're not really completely.
Because we only have to keep all seventh and eighth graders.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, there's a safety number. If we have 57 and eighth graders on for a basketball game, we're gonna cut down to whatever is deemed a safe number, which is usually somewhere around 18. So it's not always just sixth graders who are getting cut. Obviously, sport like soccer will lead you to keep larger teams, 11 on the field, down for space. Basketball team has 5 on a court at a time. Obviously, limited space, sometimes we're gonna have a gym, so to have a higher number of kids.
Just understanding potentially like what the volumes are, because on the flip side, I understand the eighth grade piece of it, right? I think the flip side of the sixth grade side of the day, like you're a younger athlete, I get that, but I think some of the messaging around that potentially and how we're, in my opinion, how we're kind of laying that out for the kids, knowing that they're not gonna have a chance of making the team is potentially also detrimental for other athletes that could be.
It also gives them experience of competing, of playing or team to play on a school team. Like but hopefully prepare them for 7th and 8th grade.
So I hear you saying it's about messaging.
I think it's about messaging and communication
It makes sense,
for
it makes sense, it's
that
something that we
age
should
group.
look at. Yeah, but explaining it to them up front.
Yeah, because like that's their first chance to try to understand it, and in a very high percentage, they're not gonna be able to make the team, right? Like that's just the reality of it. Unless we're really, really sure on 7th and 8th graders, there's probably no shot that they're getting on the team. So just how we message that in terms of making sure that we're not turning people away because they thought that they had a chance, or the fact that some people are just not even bothering because they know that they're not gonna have any shot, right? So.
And you know, this is one of those things where I've been here 11 years and I came into it this way. And I remember questioning it when I got here and it was explained to me. And it's like, now we just assume everybody else knows too. Well, this crowd of families and students doesn't know. It needs to be remessaged. It makes sense. It's easy enough to do. And it will keep people from having, you know, bad feelings about, I tried and I didn't get in. And I hear what you're saying. And you may be doing that. I'm
It
not-
is included in my preseason communication to all families.
Right, yeah, so maybe there's just, maybe we look at that language and say, are we saying?
And I think when some families come in, like the previous year, if there's 5, 6 graders that make the soccer team, the
Yes.
next year, people have an expectation that there's gonna be, hey, maybe my kid's gonna be one of these 5 kids that's gonna be on the team, and then there's none, you know, because
Right.
it's just about numbers. So I think people don't necessarily listen to the messaging, they look at what happened, because they know these kids.
The folklore.
Yes,
The folklore,
that's,
rather than
yes.
the official word.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's something we always have to kind of message against, so people understand that what you see on social media may not be the truth. And what you hear from your neighbors may not necessarily completely tell the story.
Yeah, and just because we had 5 kids previous year,
Right.
doesn't mean anything. from what
That
the
may
next
have
year.
been the exception rather than the rule.
Yeah, or I'm making that number up. but
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. No, but it's a good point. It needs to be remessaged all the time. That's a fair. Always can be improved.
Because it's not just about the 6th graders either, it could be impacting the 7th grade class too, that like potentially was waiting and then a boatload of 8th graders sign up and they don't get their chance in 7th grade either, and they have to wait until 8th grade.
Yeah, I saw that happen. That was a baseball thing. You know, none of these, you know, when the 8th graders or 7th graders, none of them played. And then we had this huge group that wanted to play the next year. So we had this influx of 8th graders that came out of nowhere that wanted to be on the baseball team. Is that still is kind of what the policy is to help, because, okay, all right, you have these 8th graders that want to play baseball, and then that's gonna transition into high school. Yeah, not to belabor the point, but
Right.
you see it happening.
And it gets trickier and
Yeah.
trickier as we get smaller, because you still don't want to put little kids up against bigger kids, especially in that middle school range where the change is so
Correct.
significant.
Right. That's a serious stuff.
Good questions. Yes.
Well, mine is sort of anticlimactic. I just wanted to talk about sports. It does not talk about sports. It does talk about, I do want to point out that I felt that the National Honor Society induction at the high school was really, really beautiful this year. It was very student-centered. The students ran the whole thing. I saw a few board members there. Thank you so much for being there. It was student-run. So adults had very little to do or to say that night, and I thought it was very special. And I think the rest of the report, and questions that you have. I am committed to finishing all tenure and first year observations. I will do it before I depart. Don't make that, I'm gonna do it.
This starts in the snow gods.
He said if you have one snow day, this whole schedule is blown.
So I was just wondering, just briefly, to give a quick overview of the Cape Caps conference. We were there that Friday.
I was there for a
Really
while. I had a
terrific.
family emergency in the afternoon, but there were others who were there.
Just wondering if there were any highlights of workshops that anybody attended that. were
Anybody
especially-
the Nutmeg Board, who went?
I went to the conference.
I was
Karina,
there, but I got one.
Jane,
Oh, I didn't know if you went that one.
and Krista,
I
and
usually sit on that one.
So any outstanding workshops that would be really relevant?
I went to one. I went to one, the superintendent of Hartford, Dr. Torres, did a presentation on innovation in Hartford. So scale up what we're trying to do here, and they're doing it at this level in Hartford. And so one of the really interesting things is, and this reminded me of our middle school program where we have students doing, you know, local history and research on local issues. They are building a school, and they have students in the design process. So I kind of left thinking, wow, you know, what an amazing thing. You know, it's not unlike what we were talking about the historic home on Boston Post Road, and how you could get kids involved in something like that. Unfortunately, that didn't work out, but it was really impressive. You went too.
Yes,
You went to that one.
yeah, that was excellent. One of the famous quotes that they made was kind of innovation is messy.
Mhm.
That was one of the favorite things that I heard him say. So, it was a great presentation, and the fact that the students ran it was just amazing.
I attended a presentation by Windsor Public Schools, and it echoed a lot of the work that Dr. Bachman does at the middle school with relationships between multilingual learners and how to reach out to them. And I mean, and they worked with a consulting firm to help them reach out to their community. But it was, you know, I shared with Krista that it just made me think of what she's already doing to reach out to the community, and validated that partnerships with families and using innovative approaches. They do home visits as well. I don't think we're at that point yet, but it just really endorsed the work that you're doing with multilingual learners. So nice job.
Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, everybody.
So that's it with the administration. Now we're looking at the reports by the board committees. Our budget.
Oh, that's me. Sorry, I was just finding my place on the agenda. So we of course met once, and then we had our joint meeting with the Board of Finance, and we are waiting to meet once we finalize the presentation of the budget for budget fiscal. We don't have a meeting scheduled currently.
We're working on that.
Yeah.
Yep. And that'll be an important meeting, because I think that we will be ready to sort of move that forward at that point and have to really sort of pick through the components of the budget, right? Mrs. Pendleton, Mrs. Doherty, right? That next budget meeting will be a big one, key one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're ready.
We're ready. We are ready.
Okay,
So Gabe, I unfortunately wasn't able to be there, for my session on student representatives on boards of education, but I had somebody from Gabe step in. I was really excited. I got the list, 25 students from across the state of Connecticut attended. So it's alive and vibrant, and students are learning how to have student voice and be able to look at it in their district in different ways. They're not sitting on a board of education, they have opportunities that they can discover to be part of the conversations.
Can I just add an addendum to that? There is a CAVE conference at the Hartford South Hotel in Rocky. I think that's at Rocky, I'm not sure. I'm actually presenting on a panel about superintendent board relations next Wednesday, December 6th.
Yeah.
And that's CAVE.
so still, I don't get still just broken that.
No, I have not, we just gonna meet it.
Martin, Steve, you know, I don't get my meeting.
I had shared some information from the last meeting. It's in the folder, if any of you want to read.
That's all I got. Strategic planning.
Oh, that's me. So Jan keeps us very well informed about strategic planning on a regular basis, so we know further report that.
All those documents are now, the goal documents that you saw in October, those are all public facing now. They're on the website. Thank you, Dr. Fletcher.
Okay, demographics.
We have a meeting next Thursday, I believe, and okay. At 6 o'clock, yeah, and I think we're gonna be getting some reports on
projection.
Current personnel.
Well, we are very busy personnel. So the executive search committee, which is all of us, will be meeting as a reminder Monday here at 6 p.m. with their search firm. So, if anybody hasn't gotten in that box exercise, it will be handed that in to them. Hopefully, it's gotta be done. So thank you. We'll see everybody here at 6 p.m. Monday evening. Jack's all over it. Jack is done.
Yeah, I did it last night.
Yeah, he just like knocked it right off.
It's long. It's long.
Oh, it's there. It is.
Yeah.
So thank you. See you Monday night, 6 p.m. here. Thank you.
Policy.
So I saw there was a meeting on the agenda, but I touched base with Trent, and I don't think we're gonna be meeting in December. But Jan and I always meet ahead of time, and then we'll let you know when we have any policy committee.
Yeah, chairman's report, I have just briefly at the Cave conference, I said in. Point of order, sorry. Point of person's preference. Question. You, as the chair of the policy, meet with Jan separately than the actual policy committee?
No, I sit with Jan and we review the policies that are gonna be proposed at the committee, so I at least understand some of the background behind it. And then the same information is shared with the policy committee. Because there are things that we put on a policy committee agenda that might be legislative. And so I want to be, as the chairperson, want to be more knowledgeable, and then that information is shared openly and transparently with the committee.
Okay, my report at the Cape conference, I said in on a very, good presentation on search for a superintendent, but that was interesting. And one of the things that we talked about in that the breakout session there was just the traits to look for a superintendent, and some of the things that I came across was integrity, being a humble listener, effective communicator, learner, high emotional intelligence, able to act, poise and temperament, able to build and trust a team. Those are some of the traits that I came across. So that was, they're very interested in who we actually were using, said CES. And they were surprised we hadn't contacted them, but still. Yeah. So it is now 8:19. And I am looking for a motion to go into executive session and invite our superintendent for purposes of discussion, transportation contract extension.
You also need Pamela Sorty and Julie.
And Julie, Pam, sorry, and Julie Panther.
So
And second. Ellie, all in favor? Aye. So it's 8:19, we're now private exec session. I am looking for a motion to adjourn our meeting. First by Eileen, second by Steve. All those in favor? Adjourn. Thank you, everyone.
Everybody know that when I was